Hello, welcome to the E09 Show. I'm your host, John E09. In this episode, no regulars, because reasons, as always. As for our guest, he's originally from Wendotty.
Wyandotte.
Okay, Wyandotte, Michigan. Currently online, I guess. He is a social security disability. And as a hobby, he writes and broadcasts. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Joseph M. Leonard.
Yep, and you got it right. It looks like Leonard, but it's not French. It's Lenard, Leonard without the O. And I have to make the distinction because there is an author out of North Carolina, Joseph Leonard. So, of course, I want you to buy my books, not his books, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, how's life?
Cold, very, very cold here.
Mm,
We got some snow today. Uh, so it was actually a little warmer today than the last few days. Negative temperature wind chills. So I've been more or less hibernating the last several days, not leaving the house.
hmm. All right then. Uh, have you working on something or been up to much recently?
Oh, I'm always working on things. I've been spending a lot of my time of late with my Christitutionalist podcast. I invented and trademarked that term, Christitutionalist, Christitutionalist, a Christian U.S. based constitutionalist. And so been busy with that. I am putting some additional touches. Constitutionalist Politics book, the number two, part two, will be dropping in June. So every once in a while, I dip into that with putting some new material. I've got till June to put that together, so I got to be careful to not put too much. I can't have that book be too big, or it'll be too expensive. Nobody will be able to buy it.
Hmm. Yes, of course. So, what exactly brought you here?
uh, a mother and a father. I didn't realize
uh,
this was going to be a birds and bees discussion.
nah, definitely not. That's
I,
crazy.
I'm also known as Jokester Joe on the Savage Unfiltered show that I co-host, so I can
Hmm.
uh, I can never pass on a lame pun opportunity. So
Of course you wouldn't.
stuff is so serious these days. You've got to keep a sense of humor, or you'll go crazy. In fact, even in my Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You book, my number one Amazon bestseller, yes, it's about terrorism, but I like to say it's not a book about death, but life and living. Life over death, hope over fear, faith over despair, love over hate, good over evil, individualism over collectivism, freedom over tyranny, family and friends, life. Even in that book, the main thread of terrorism ties a bunch of sub theme storyline together. There's a comic relief chapter to make that very point. You've got to keep a sense of humor or you'll go crazy.
Yes, absolutely. So, what was life for you growing up?
Born and raised into a middle class family. My dad worked for General Motors. Well, he did various things. He actually worked for A&P Grocery chain that's no longer around for a while. Eventually moved up and into General Motors. He worked in more or less the traffic division, dealing with the trucking lines, logistics, moving things about. Uh, he had a band, Ted Leonard Jr. and the Polka Kings. You could still find their 3 albums out there, out and about, like on eBay and things like that. And my grandfather on my dad's side also had a polka band, though he didn't record any albums. So I got the kind of creative gene from my dad's side of the family. And indeed, in the 70s and 80s, I wrote and recorded music, but you can't find any of that around these days. I never got a record deal, but I kept writing. And then finally, this decade, got around to saying, okay, some of these things I should release internationally. So I have. So I have 3 international books. Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, How to Write a Book and Get It Published, Hints, Tips, and Techniques, which I like to say about that. Even if you're not interested in writing a book, think of it like a tell all, but I don't name any Kardashians in it. Think of it like a behind the scenes book. What does an author go through to put a book together and make it available to you at a bookstore to buy, to read, and put on your bookshelf? And then my latest Constitutionalist Politics book based on my podcast. But yeah, I more or less grew up in a middle class family. So, things weren't great, but things weren't bad. I, my sister and I were fairly spoiled growing up. I recognize that. Sure, a whole lot of people in life had things worse than we did in life. You mentioned at the top of the show, I'm now on Social Security disability. I worked in information technology, and all those hours of being up and awakened in the middle of the night and that put all kinds of stress and strain on my body, and to the point where it just kind of like shut down. Not a nervous breakdown or anything like that, but stress, intellectual uh, thinking kind of work behind a desk stress can be as debilitating as times as physical work. And indeed, my body shut down and it basically said, "No, you're not doing that anymore. You need sleep. I sleep like 12 hours a day every day now. It's my need to sleep is ridiculous, which of course makes it then impossible really to hold down a regular job of any kind. So I went from my nice 6 figure salary to getting by on disability pennies. But, again, like I say, and I have my character Martin say in Terror Strikes, my philosophy: remember, things could always be better, but they could often be worse. I know I have a roof over my head. I'm able to have enough food to eat. So there are a lot more people a lot worse off than I am. So I don't like to whine too much. You know what I mean? We all need to complain every once in a while to vent, but I remind myself of that. Remember, things could always be better, but they could often be far worse.
Yes, absolutely. So, is there any books you have written or in the process of writing so far?
Well, I've got, yeah, again, Constitutionalist Politics 2, my third international book. Part 2, I've got in the works for June. Uh, Also, I have a few other irons in the fire that I can't quite give out the title to because, you don't want to give away ideas to the enemy.
Of
Somebody,
course.
so I don't want somebody stealing my book. They're already stealing my stuff.
That is the worst. Do you remember there was a time that everyone got along and we were living happily in our world of imagination?
Yeah, that's the only place everybody got along. And people only in our imaginations or some fantasyland movies. Human nature has been such since humankind has been on this planet. We're a covetous, hateful, spiteful, uh, self-centered uh, uh, peoples, and we're just never going to all get along. It would be nice if we could, and yes, of course, as like Martin Luther King Jr. said, we need to be basing opinions and things of each other. Don't judge a book by its cover. Well, that's a lie. People do. But people you shouldn't judge by their skin tone, but the content of their character. But, we all have good days, we all have bad days. Uh, the best we can hope for is to try to not blow each other all to hell in a handbasket.
Yep, that's the last thing we would want.
Yeah, being a Christian, I certainly believe in uh, revelation. But as a Christian, unlike Shiite Muslim sects who believe it's their duty to bring about Armageddon and world chaos so they can rein in the era of their Mahdi's return. As a Christian, I know Armageddon is indeed coming at some point, but uh, it's avoiding that is important. I await Christ's return, but it's not my duty to make life on earth hell to try to hasten his return. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
some bad stuff is a coming. I hope it won't be in my lifetime. And as the Bible says, no one shall know the hour. So none of us will know. It's people have been saying we're in end times for century after century after century. There's somebody always running around saying we're in the end times. Well, I don't know. I hope not.
Hmm. Yes. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Uh, I'm born and raised in the southeast Michigan, downriver Detroit suburbs. Uh, I choose to stay here. I don't like the winters. I was joking at the open about how cold, cold, cold it is, and especially with my bad health these days, I don't deal with the cold that well. I really love the Las Vegas area, but I mean, if you're saying anywhere on the planet, I mean, wow, there are a whole lot of great places to choose from. But of the places I've been to, I've visited, I used to vacation in Vegas a lot. I'd love to live in the Vegas area. There's just always, so much hustle and bustle, and there's so much more to do there than just gambling. In fact, I wrote an online article way back in 2006 for Before It's News, indeed, called Vegas. So much more than just gambling. So many things to see and do there. It's like I wish the Vegas tourism uh, committee should really have paid me for giving them free promotion.
Hmm. Absolutely. could you give a 40-minute presentation on without any preparation?
Oh, information technology, online writing, podcasting, uh, music, hockey. I played hockey growing up. Uh, I also coached and officiated the sport. So any number of things I could. And why I'm on a lot of different shows. You know, the old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. I've been through and done a lot of different things in my life, which is great. I've got a lot of experience. I've been on Don Wardlow's The Baseball Lifer show a couple times talking baseball, even though I never played baseball. My Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You book has a baseball sub thread through it. And I'm not going to give a spoiler as to why it's there. If you read the book, it makes sense. So he's had me on his show to talk about baseball and the latest rule changes and stuff. So, plus, I've been involved in politics since 1978, since I was just young and in high school, because my godfather was the mayor of a neighboring town. So I've been involved in a lot of things. I've been an extemporaneous speaker at all kinds of different events. So I can usually bullshit my way through anything for that amount of time.
Yes, indeed. Would you sleep on the wall or sleep on the ceiling?
Well, you got to sleep on the wall because, of course, what the hell was I can't think of his name now, but you know, the recording artist dancing on the ceiling. So the ceiling's reserved for dancing. So that's easy. You got to sleep on the wall. I guess you could hang yourself like a painting and sleep on the wall.
Hmm, I
So,
never thought of it that way.
yeah, did you ever think I'd have an answer for that? Like I said, I could pretty much bullshit myself through anything.
I never thought I'd see the day, but here we are.
Yeah, what? Who? Oh God, I can picture the guy that did the song "Dancing on the Ceiling," but I can't think of his name. I'm thinking Quincy Jones, but that's not him. Uh, I can picture the guy with the Jerry curl hair. Uh, I can hear his voice in my head, but can't think of his name.
Cool. Hmm.
You
What's the
got
weather like where you are?
Yeah. I was expecting another oddball question like the wall or the ceiling. But yeah,
Yeah,
no, again, it's very frigid here, negative wind chills. We've actually had a pretty mild winter to this point. So we've been pretty spoiled this year, winter in Michigan. But all of a sudden, this whole week has been sub-zero wind chill frigid. Winter decided to finally show up with a vengeance.
nice.
Well, I wouldn't say it's nice.
But I can't. I like weather like that, honestly.
Oh, do you? You're more a cold weather person.
Yeah,
Yeah, even though I said I played hockey growing up, you'd think I'd be acclimated and good with the cold. Being in ice rinks all the time, no, I hate the cold.
fabulous. If someone wrote a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
Oh, that's an interesting off the wall question. Oh, oh boy, that's tough to come up with. A hell of a guy, I'd like to think, right? You know, how about he tried? You know, again, we all have good days, we all have bad days, but like I said, I'm known as Jokester Joe on the Savage Unfiltered podcast that I co-host as well as host my own podcast. So I always try again to keep that philosophy of trying to make someone else's day better through humor and offering people a smile. You can affect someone's life with just a smile. So, I certainly like to think a nice guy. Uh, there's already been a book called Mr. Nice Guy, but I suppose mine could be Mr. Nice Guy Part 2.
That could be interesting. What is the best way to travel?
For free. On somebody else's dime. No, well, that's a good question. I mean, uh, I used to love to go out to Vegas like at least every other year. I haven't been there since 2006, though, of late. I just, with my health and being on disability, just don't have that kind of, you know, lying around money to be able to afford vacations anymore. And of course, would fly. Flying first class, of course, is nice, although I've only ever done it a few times in my life. I'd love to be able to fly by private plane one of these, days, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. I have been on cruises. Cruises are very nice, of course, unless if there's a problem, and then you get stuck out there. So, uh, I mean, there are so many good ways to travel, and it's up to everyone's own personal, preferences of things that they like and enjoy. Uh, but whatever gets you to your unlike a cruise, though, I was going to say, whatever gets you to your destination the quickest is like the best way to travel. But I mean, the point of a cruise is to not get anywhere fast, right? To have that lying around town time while you're floating between ports. Uh, but by plane, I think they should bring back oh, I can't think of it. What was the hypersonic jet? No, the Concorde.
Yeah, Concord.
They need to bring the Concorde back. And it's my understanding that a few different newer hypersonic, supersonic planes are supposedly in development that have sound dampeners so they could potentially fly them over a mainland, uh, you know, with concerns of the sonic boom. Uh, but I would really love to see hypersonic, supersonic travel return. So, because, like flying from Michigan to Vegas alone is like a 3-hour flight. And it's like, oh, that's a long time to be on a tin can floating around in the air, let alone from like LA to Australia, a 15-hour-ish flight or something. So I've heard. Oh, no way. I would love to visit Australia, but never did because there was no way I was going to float in a tin can for that long.
Fair enough. What was the stupidest joke you've ever heard?
Oh, there's a lot of bad jokes. Like I said, I'm as Jokester Joe, I'm like the master of the bad puns. Rather than give you the stupidest joke I've ever heard because I wouldn't be able to think of it offhand, I've heard so many bad ones. I will give you another one of my Joe original bad puns. And when you hear it, it will be obvious, but yet I'm the guy that thought of it 2 decades ago. A professional comedian did not. Guy walks into a bar, says to the bartender, I need a Coke with a Viagra in it. And the bartender kind of looks at him funny. So he says, I need a really stiff drink. Ba-dum-bum.
Ah, I get it. Because, yeah, of course it is.
Here's another one that's also in my Terror Strike book. Again, couple jokes to lighten the mood and make the point. You got to keep a sense of humor. Are you a Shakespeare fan at all?
Oh yeah, I've heard of Shakespeare.
Yeah, everybody has at least heard and knows of Shakespeare, let alone whether or not they enjoy his work or not. I think it's rather dry. Of course, studied it in school. I was part of a theater group for a while in high school too, but that's beside the point. So I have a Shakespeare joke, Joe original joke. To be or not to be? 'Tis truly the question, because if it's to be, I got bingo. But.
Nice. Are you a cat person or a dog person?
Oh, well, a little of both. We used to have dogs growing up, mainly beagles, but later in life, we all kind of became cat people, as a lot of people do as they get older, because cats are just so darn easier to deal with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you ever imagined about the funniest person you've ever met?
uh, well, I don't need to imagine about them. I think the funniest person I've ever met and an idol of mine was Don Rickles. May he rest in peace. The king of mean, as he was called, but he was a really, really nice person.
Ah, okay. That's cool. What is the best way to start the morning?
Not get out of bed. Sleep till noon. That's the best way. I
If
always,
only.
yeah, I like to joke about mornings would be great if they didn't come so damn early.
Yeah. What has taken you the longest to get good or decent at?
I don't know. I'm so naturally good at everything. uh, that's an interesting other oddball off the wall question. Uh, Well, I could say bowling, I guess, but actually, I'm still not good at bowling, even though I like it.
Oh, okay. Well, there's time for everything. Where do you see yourself 20 years from now?
Pushing up daisies, most likely. I turned 62 this year. I have a heart condition as well as all my other health problems. So, ah, I'd be surprised if I'd still be around 20 years from now. But you know what? You don't know. You don't know your own personal time when it's due, when it's up. And, you know, we'll see what the next 2 decades have to offer, what they bring. Like I say, I have a suicide prevention sub thread in my Terror Strikes book because people who've gone through terrorism or the military fighting the war on terror deal with PTSD and issues of suicidal thoughts. You don't know what tomorrow will bring until you carpe diem. You don't know the impact. It's like we recently, kind of past Christmas. And every year, It's a Wonderful Life, the old Jimmy Stewart movie comes on. And I like to say, be someone's Clarence. You don't know the impact you have on others' lives on a day to day basis because your life isn't a Jimmy Stewart movie. You may not stop a pharmacist from poisoning somebody. You may not stop somebody from drowning and what good they then go on to do in life, like uh, George does with his brother in that movie, if you weren't here or aren't here. But a lot of little things can add up and make a difference. Your life matters. You potentially save someone else's life whose child then goes on to cure cancer. In a way, you help cure cancer. It may not have happened had you not been here. So all life has meaning.
It sure does. And that is all we have for this episode. It was great having you on, Joseph, talking about your works in a lot of things, which I've probably forgotten because there's so much, and a lot of other things. It's been great.
Well, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it. And, I'm willing to talk to just about anyone, anytime, any place on any subject. And I really appreciated the would you sleep on the wall or the ceiling question. I love it when somebody can come up with something different than the same old welcome to the book show, tell us about your book. Same old question and answer garbage you could do in your sleep, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And until next time, stay tuned for more.